Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Hey. Hope everybody's doing good. Karl Bryan coming at you. I'm here today, Sans Road Dog. He is hanging out with his daughter at a soccer tournament. I'm pretty sure his life has become a series of soccer tournaments, by the way, if you didn't notice, but he is a dedicated coach to his daughter's soccer team. Get on him. But anyways, so here we are. I hope you're doing good. I have got Road Dog to send me a few questions that he sent them via text, so I'm going to handle them. And the first one, guess what it says? He says, I have to open with a joke. Okay, so, and I'm going to be truthful. I didn't prepare anything for today apart from the joke. So, and I'm pretty sure, you know what? There is a rule in comedy. You know what you're not supposed to do? You're not supposed to start a joke by telling anybody that you're telling a joke. But guess what? Here it comes. Anyways, so if you read my daily emails, you know that I got my buddy Dangerous Dave, right? A little bit of an out there guy. So we were having a conversation and it looked like this. He goes, Karl, I've got a great new business idea. And I'm sitting there and I've heard them all, right? So I looked at him and I said, look, man, let's hear it. Is this a good one? Dangerous Dave goes, I'm going to start a condom company and I've got a great slogan. And I just, oh my gosh, I go, Dave, what's the slogan? He goes, don't kid yourself. Boom, there you go. Okay, don't kid yourself. Condom company. Is that good? Is that good? So there you go. So there's my joke. Road Dog instructed me. So that's my my penance for having Road Dog in my life, possibly. So there you go. Okay, what he also told me is I have to start with one needle moving thing that I've learned this week. I think what makes sense, and I will tell you that each week I learn a lot of needle moving things. I spend a lot of time listening to YouTube and reading, and be a blog post, be a book, etc. But I think what makes sense. Last week we talked about, buying, selling company. We were kind of in that space, the exit world. So here's a conversation that I had very short time ago, and it's like, Karl, should I buy a company or should I start a company? Which is better? And it wasn't worded quite like that, but that was the premise of a semi-long explanation of what somebody was curious about, and the question ended up being that. So here's how I'd answer it. Common sense is very seldom common. Should you buy or should you start? And maybe I'll start with a question. Which one is cheaper? Start from scratch or buy an existing thing? Well, first of all, there's not enough information would be the answer, right? But let me tell you, so look, let me start with this, a frame, okay? A billionaire hack is asymmetrical risk reward, okay? So all that means is that, in fact, Tony Robbins, if you read his book, Money Master the Game, there were two rules that all billionaires found, and the self-made billionaires. And by the way, Money Master the Game, that's a book that I'm going to recommend to everybody. If you haven't read it, I believe that it should be must reading for every family, especially those that aspire to accomplish something that looks like wealth and some sort of freedom around it. But anyway, so there was asymmetrical risk and asset allocation was the other one, right? But I'm not asset allocation. I've written about it. I've talked about it. So let's talk about that another time. Asymmetrical risk reward. And it just says low risk, high potential return. Zero guarantees ever. Got to understand that. An example that I would give you as a business coach would be really simple. You're here listening to my podcast. Guess what? As a business coach, you could start a podcast, and then I would question, how much would that cost you? And then I would ask you, what is the potential upside, right? And I'll go really dramatic and introduce you to a guy named Joe Rogan, you may have heard of, right? I think he's gone a little left field, where he's talking about aliens and a lot of weird stuff, and it appears to be getting progressively weirder, which I'm good with. And go Joe Rogan. I don't know that it's not my thing, but it's not my thing, if you know what I mean. I like business, and I like to talk about business, and aliens, that's not going to be my thing tomorrow. I'm not going to hang up here and then go hang out and study aliens. Not going to happen. But anywho, worked out pretty well for him. Let's put it that way, right? And again, at one stage, it started as a podcast. You could too. Let me tell you something. As a business coach, you get great clients from your podcast, but there's also a really good chance that you are going to start a podcast, and what's going to happen? You're going to get crickets, and you're not going to get anywhere. Well, guess what happened when I started my podcast, right? Crickets. It was very incredibly unexciting until it wasn't. I had hundreds and hundreds of thousands of downloads, right, to the podcast, and millions of minutes, blah 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 blah. And by the way, we're not out there promoting it. To be honest with you, we could market this thing at like 10x the return. One of these days, maybe we will, maybe we won't. But I'll just tell you that's something we could do. The podcast costs next to nothing to start. It has got reasonable reach, not great reach, reasonable reach for my little thing, right? And the return, though, I can tell you that when I talk to our best clients, invariably they tell me that they know of the podcast, they follow the podcast, etc. So that would be an example of asymmetrical risk reward, where you take something, you bet small and then potentially win big, right? So back to answering the question, buy or start, right? Here's a different question. When do businesses fail? When do they fail? And if you answered within the first 5 years, you would be correct, right? And by the way, there's also, so on the other side of that, there's a little thing called the Lindy effect. I've written about that in my daily email not too long ago, but it basically says the longer something has worked, the more likely it is to continue to work, right? So if businesses fail in the first 5 years, what if you created rules? If you follow anything we do, rules. That people talk about culture in a company. Okay, that's like saying oxygen. It's just something it's there, but you can't see it, you can't hold it, you can't really explain it. Culture in a company is like that, but if you want to have good culture in a company, guess what you need to have? Rules, right? Talk about, again, first principles. The first principles of hockey, the rule book. First principles of football, the rule book, right? Okay, so again, how about you created rules around investing in companies, or rules around buying a company, and the first rule was what? Must have been in business for, tell me how long? If you said 6 years, you get a gold star. Okay, why? Because they jumped over the first 5 years where most businesses fail, right? And what if you did some other math, and let me help you with it, businesses that do over $2 million a year, also significantly stronger. So what if you put a second rule in place that they must be doing over $2 million in gross revenues, right? So, and by the way, a frame, some people, you want to make it, or do you want to keep it? If you bought a business that was 6 years old doing $2 million a year, you'd be more in the game of keeping it than making it. If you started a company, you'd be more in the game of making it versus keeping it, right? Like professional investors want to keep it, amateur investors are trying to make it, right? And that's not that professional investors are not trying to multiply their money. Don't be crazy. But let me tell you, a professional investor is, look, Warren Buffett, what are his rules? Rule number 1, don't lose money. What's rule number 2? See rule number 1, okay? That's your frame. Boring, vanilla, insanely impactful, right? And then notwithstanding, you're going to do that, you want to be able to read financial statements, because it is not unheard of a company to make $2 million in gross revenues and have very fine margin, and therefore be a less attractive, maybe incredibly unattractive, or not so attractive company. Like, okay, let's just do two frames here. You got a company that's doing $10 million a year, gross revenue, okay? That sounds impressive, I would imagine, to you, right? Hitting 8 figures, and they have $500,000 in profit, okay? Do you want to buy that company? Is that your guy? Is that your company? Or do you got a company that did $1 million a year in gross revenue, but they profited 500K, right? Which one do you want to buy? Well, again, the truth, not enough information, nowhere near enough information, to be clear. But I know the $10 million company that's making 500 grand. I don't need to look at the financials. I don't need to speak to the workers. I don't need to speak to the managers. I don't need to speak to the owner. I don't need to look for concentration risk and a bunch of other stuff that I'd be looking for to know that this company is vulnerable, right? Vulnerable. It's got if anything, if you're doing $10 million and only $5,000 of profit, anything goes wrong, it could go sideways, right? But by the way, what's really important as a business coach, both of them have a bottom line of 500 grand, okay? But are the two situations similar? And the answer is a hard no. And this is where, again, you've got to understand financials. You've got to be able to look at a P&L and a balance sheet and a cash flow statement, be able to piece them together. Or have somebody close to you that can do that for you and guide you. It's not rocket science. We teach a 4-day course on exactly how to do that. So that's, you just need to be able to understand those financials, right? But the bottom line is buying, which on the surface, common sense is very seldom common. I would imagine that when I say start a company or buy a company, that you would think starting is going to be less expensive. And the reality is that I could show you in a very short period of time where that might not be the case, right? Anyways, asymmetrical risk reward, again, very, very important. You want to buy a company that's been in business longer than 5 years, doing over $2 million in gross revenues. And now that's a business that should pass your acid test. Take 2 checks and put them beside a couple of rules, and I think that you'd be doing well, right? And again, do you want to make it or do you want to keep it? I'm going to suggest that you want to get into the world of keeping it as opposed to making it as quickly as possible. It is not possible to keep it without making it. Of course, I understand that, and also remember that it's not what you make, it's what you keep. So again, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, and I'm not becoming Dave Ramsey all of a sudden here. Not even close, not even close. Remember, Dave Ramsey, I said this in an email not long ago. Dave Ramsey is a billionaire because he's an info marketer, okay? He is an incredible marketer, incredible. Some of his financial advice you should run very far and wide from, and that said, he's got some fabulous advice. He's helped a lot of people. But okay, actually, translation: Dave Ramsey speaks to the guy making 80 grand a year, the gal making 80 grand a year in their job. Does not speak to entrepreneurs, so I'd be a little careful there. Oh well. Anyway, so there's my advice. That's a conversation that I had, and there's also like understanding things like trends, and then. Like an HVAC company, right? Back in the day, they'd get like a 3x a multiple on earnings, and that's basically what the business would sell for. And now I think if you do a little bit of homework, you're going to see it riding in and around 10x. I know Grant Cardone, who's a popular guy in our world, great guy, worst guy in the world, really doesn't matter. He's a billionaire, and to think that you can't learn something from would be insane. And I can tell you that he's going pretty heavy at HVAC companies. Why? There's a bunch of reasons, lots of which not really overly relevant to talk about here today, but they skated through COVID. COVID, and they kind of appear to be a little bit recession proof, right? So that's kind of it. And in fact, we actually had a virtual business coaching mastery, which is an event we often run. We had one of our coaches goes to HVAC companies and he actually buys and sells them. And he actually did, I believe there was a few case studies in there, but certainly a case study of an HVAC company that he bought, how he sold it, the steps that he took in between, and the multiple that he got, and the return that he got, and the very large cash windfall that he got. So HVAC could be one of those, or like a vet. Maybe a vet would make more sense to you right now. What happened during COVID? And the answer is a lot of people went and bought dogs. Okay, a lot. What do those dogs? Those dogs are now, a couple of years old, 3 years old, to do. And guess what they're doing? They're in and out of the vet. And then they're going to the vet, to get the dog food, to get whatever they got to get done for the dog, right? So again, vets are significantly, it's a busier business now than it was pre-COVID all day long. And what am I talking about there? Trends. Trends are your friends. You want to go to where the puck is going, not where the puck is. That's a 101 of Wayne Gretzky, but very much in business. If you want to make oodles amounts of money in business, understanding where the puck is going, being able to read trends. And by the way, knowing the difference between a trend and a fad, okay, because a fad is not good. That could debatably be, well, actually, I'm not even going to say it. I was going to say Bitcoin, but today's not the day to talk about Bitcoin. That again, and yeah, so Bitcoin, and it may go to the moon, and it may go to the zero. I've discussed that lots of times on the podcast. If you want to know what Bitcoin's going to do, don't look at Bitcoin. Don't look at the price of Bitcoin. Look at the adoption, and then who's adopting it, and look at regulation. That's what I'd be looking at. I would be ignoring the price of it because that will just make you emotional. That's what I'm trying to say. But more importantly, for the sake of today's, what I'm talking about, if I was going to buy a company, if I was going to, wanted to get into a company that I could be able to sell for an impressive multiple, one of the things I would be doing, one of the rules that I would have is that I would be looking at trends. And I would be trying to get into something that might be trending. And by the way, as a business coach, you're looking for clients that you're going to take on. Do you want businesses that are going in the wrong direction? Do you want them that are stagnant, or do you want businesses that are exploding? The token example that I always give there, anti-aging, right? You could be the worst marketer in the world. And actually, that's not true because it's very competitive, but no doubt you get the idea. Is there more and more and more people entering the anti-aging space? And when I say anti-age, I don't mean the businesses, I mean the people. Are people getting a little bit older, do we have an aging population? The answer is hard yes. Well, then anti-aging probably should be something worth getting into. I talked about last week, like the ecosystem, right? So if you see that, what's the ecosystem of that? Like, again, if where you live, real estate is booming, what does everybody do? Become a realtor. Okay, terrible idea. Look at the ecosystem, right? I said this last week, so I apologize, but I just think it's so important. The gold rush, who made the money? The guys, panhandling for gold, or the guys that sold the pans, the picks, the shovels, the denim, Levi Strauss, right? You know the answer to that. And by the way, some of the guys crushed it panning for gold. Most didn't. It's an 80-20, more like a 95-5 thing. So looking at, rather than going 8 anti-aging and gonna go do Botox tomorrow, maybe what you're doing is you're looking at the ecosystem of that, right? Anyways, okay, so let's keep moving. Buying a company and starting a company, which one is less expensive? Which one should you do? The answer is I need more information, but these are some of the things that I'd be thinking about. And I most certainly would be coming out of what I just said and going, I need a rule book. Before I buy a company, before I start a company, I need a rule book. Okay, next question from Road Dog. Give us a Zen thought. Let's see. Okay, thinking is nothing more than asking and answering questions to yourself. Okay, that's why, again, when I ask you a question, I can direct your thinking. It's like a form of hypnosis, right? If you watch Tony Robbins talk, it's just a series of questions, right? You should think about adopting a style similar to that. If you're looking to influence people in a meaningful, ethical way, you should do that. But that said, let's go back to you and in between your own ears. The problem you have, maybe the greatness that you have, but possibly the problem you have is you ask the same questions over and over and over and over and over again. And if I were to take a percentage basis, I would say that 80% of them are possibly negative geared, and then 20% of them are positively geared. So if you do, Tony, you ever heard of Date with Destiny, Tony Robbins? Very popular course. A lot of people will, there's a movie, ever heard of his movie, Something to Guru? I'm Not Your Guru. Tony Robbins documentary. That's basically Date with Destiny. That was literally taken straight from that. What he teaches you is that you have a primary question, and then he helps you create the primary question. Like the primary question that I created, I can't remember the one that I had, but I can tell you that it wasn't overly exciting, right? Negative, whoops. But the positive, the primary question that I came away from that I still have today is how do I more enjoy the magic of right now? How do I more enjoy the magic of right now? So I don't know if this is overly, in fact, there's not a lot Zen about this, but that might be something to get you into more of a Zen-like state where you are thinking, yeah, and there's a question that you ask yourself repeatedly: why me? Why me? Why me? Always me? Always me? Always me? Of course it went wrong. Of course it went wrong. You know, like these negative questions that you might be gearing towards yourself, and notwithstanding, you're fearful of having love taken away from you and not being enough. Like those are your two greatest fears. If you've got blood and oxygen running through you, not being enough and losing love. So what you end up doing is those questions lead you a little bit there. Well, get on the front foot, you know, kind of step forward and take control of that question is what Tony Robbins would say, Date with Destiny would say. I mean, it's a 5-day process that all culminates in one question. And I think there's incredible power in that. So maybe that provides some value for you. Okay, he also said this, a couple weeks ago, we talked about the importance of saying no being the secret to success. He wanted me to go further on what do you say no and what do you say yes to. I have the feeling I may or may not have answered this, but that's okay. I will answer it here. Saying, look, no, Warren Buffett would say this, growth is yes, success is no. He will say that most of his success and Charlie Munger's success, the late great Charlie Munger, may he rest in peace, is that they said no to almost everything. I wrote this on Facebook a while back and got like lots of positive feedback, let's just call it. No is a decision. Yes is a responsibility. I think there's insane power in that. No is a decision. Yes is a responsibility. Learn to get comfortable to say no. Remember, you're worried that people are going to take love away from you, right? So again, saying no can sometimes feel like you're accelerating that, moving in that direction, accidentally and organically moving yourself into that position to have somebody take love. But you know what? I think you're going to lose a lot more by not having the gut. By the way, you don't want to lose your own self-love, by the way, and saying yes to something you don't want to say yes to can sometimes do that. But bottom line, get good at saying no. Obvious, but seldom done. Again, internally, here's something that I say to my team, and I believe wholeheartedly. I've paid a great price for this, and then also had a lot of success around this. But you can accomplish anything. We can accomplish anything. I can accomplish anything, but you can't accomplish everything, right? So you got to take everything off the table. So you got to write a list of 10 things that you want to accomplish, and then at the minimum, isolate the top 3. And in a perfect world, you would isolate the 1 and then just go all bloody in on like that 1. So, you know, again, as you know, the secret to success, you know, we talked about the Michael J. Fox movie, I remember. The Secret to My Success, I think the movie was called. But anyways, you know, just by taking things off the table, I think there's great power in that. And so just think of GPS, right? So if you were to go to a GPS, what is the one thing, you've got to do 2 things. And this is coaching 101. You got to identify where you're at, and you just turn on GPS and it automatically does that for you. Thank you very much, right? Awesome. But it does it. If it doesn't do it, if it doesn't calibrate, if it doesn't work, it can't direct you, right? Impossible. So first thing it does is, you know, works out exactly where you're at and lets you know. The second thing that happens, and this one it can't do for you, you got to tell it where you want to go, right? Example I always give, LA to New York, right? So you gotta plunk in New York. Now on the way from LA to New York, here's the magic of the GPS and the instructions, or the, having the GPS dialed in. Is there going to be an accident in that length of distance? Is there going to be an accident? Yes. Is there going to be a storm? Likely. Is there going to be a detour because of roadworks? Yeah, you can only assume, right? So but what happens? It takes you off course, but then brings you back onto course. You know what I mean? So you do have to deviate, but you keep going, right? So this, again, getting, saying no to things, and then saying yes to one thing and then saying no to 9 things kind of thing. It allows you to have that GPS deal with detours and headaches and dramas, and the staff members and the joint ventures letting you down, and the people saying maybe, or they'll get back to you, and just driving you mad, right? Well, you know what I mean? If you have that destination clearly defined, I think that you run right over the top of that. And lastly, I'm going to say this, is that people manage their to-do lists, and you need to manage your calendar. And again, I know this is something that I talked about recently, but it's one of those things that we should talk about it every week, right? Because again, you got your goals, and you like goal setting and time management. That should just be like a minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, week by week, month by month, quarter by quarter, year by year thing. And rather than manage your to-do list, you got to manage your calendar, because the restraint, your to-do list, there's no limit. You could put 130 things on the damn thing, right? How good is that to-do? A to-do list with 130 things without seeing it, and the quality of the individual or the quality of the tasks, what are the chances of that being a good list? And again, your instincts are correct. It's a terrible list. Nobody's getting that many things done. So what you got to do is create a really tight list of things. And then what do you got to do? In a perfect world, calendarize them, right? Like, there's your restraint. The restraint isn't your to-do list. The restraint is your calendar. So again, place everything on your calendar, including the 30-minute, walk. The TTT. Do you have time to think on your calendar? Do you have that? If you followed this, again, time to think, having time to measure and time to think is one of the most important things you could do. Keith Cunningham, who's an absolute genius, will tell you that you could take everything away from him: his income, his staff, his wealth, everything in business. And he would say, just give me these 2 things: time to think and time to measure. And he used different wording, but principally the exact same thing. He would say that those 2 things, he would get it all back. Okay. And by the way, though, importantly, in case that's new to you, time to think is you, pen, piece of paper, in a dark room, nobody, no thing, no getting up and going to the bathroom, no, interruptions, no kids knocking on the door, no TV in the background, no music playing. It's you and your list. And by the way, what you're going to find, if you've never done it before, schedule, you could do it for a half an hour if it's your first time. I think ultimately an hour is going to be not enough time, but a good amount of time. The hour will go so quick, it'll blow your bloody mind. And hopefully it's what are you doing? Like, you come up with, time to think. You come up with one question, you put it at the top of the page, and you just start writing what comes to mind, right? How am I going to accomplish X? You're coming up with a question, you're just writing down. And by the way, want to know a little client hack? You want to know how to coach your client at a really, really high level if you're not sure how to do it? Well, you put your client in a room and you say, here's the question. And again, depending upon dynamic, there might be 5 questions that you're giving them. And all they do is answer those 5 questions. You come pick up the notes, they take a copy of the notes. And again, you can do this on your iPad and your iPhone, you know what I mean? But I think there's something really, really powerful, pen, paper, okay? And then take it and, you can put it on, a remarkable pad, however you're gonna do it. You could put it into an iPad, but I believe an iPad has too many distractions to do this as successfully as possible. But anyway, so your client does this, and they say they have 5 pages of notes. They take a picture of the 5 pages, send it to you, and there's an incredible list. And will you do everything? No. What you got to do is take 10 things and bring it back to 3. Another 10 things, bring them back to 3. 10 things, bring them back to 3, or even 2 in the interest of 80-20. Anyway, so that you know, you got to make sure that that calendar is mission time. Look, it's time management, but time management is so bastardized in terms of an expression, right? People like even 80-20 is. Everybody thinks that they know 80-20, but they don't, because if you're not doing it, you don't know it. Your client has heard of 80-20, and when you say 80-20, they go, oh yeah, that. So you think that they know it, but they're not doing it, so they don't know it. So they don't get credit for anything. Like they don't get credit for it by knowing, having read the book, or you know, read the title of the book, or you know, being introduced to it. That doesn't give them a pass. You got to look at what they're doing. Remember 80-20, and then you got to go to the 20 and do an 80-20, and then you got to go to the 20 and do an 80-20, and then you got to go to the 20 and do the 20 of that again, right? And what ends up happening is you get to 150. Okay, like 1%. There's one thing that if you got your client to do that will be absolutely monumental. There's one thing for you that if you nailed it down to that one thing, that would be absolutely monumental. Okay, that sounds good. Problem, because there is a big problem. That's the hardest thing you could ever do. It takes patience. It takes conscientiousness. It takes intestinal fortitude on freaking steroids. It takes a healthy mind, a healthy body to be able to not allow thoughts to run away. And you know what I mean? Like, so to get there. So think of a way Perry Marshall will describe it is a magnifying glass, right? So you got to take a magnifying glass, a magnifying glass, a magnifying glass, a magnifying glass until you find the one thing. And like, what is that one thing? And which, by the way, might bring, there's the one thing, Gary Keller, Keller real estate, you know, billionaire, very, very, very accomplished guy. He's got a book called One Thing, which I'm not describing that. Like, that's not what the book is about, but it kind of is. It's just, I think the way that he describes it from memory is that you're looking for the domino that knocks over the other dominoes, right? So it's like, if I get a list of 10 things to do, the way that I ascertain my 1 or 2 that really matter is if I go if I do this, how many will it knock over? If I do this, how many will it knock over? If I do this, how many will it knock over? And the thing that knocks over a lot of things becomes the more important. That's your algorithm right there, right? Pretty straightforward. Anywho, okay, so moving. Hopefully that is helping. Looking at my text here from Road Dog. He wants me to give, he just goes, look, talk about why business coaches and business coaching clients don't accomplish their goals. He says that's always popular. Blah, blah, blah. There you go. This is what he wants me to do. Okay. Why don't you, me, anybody accomplish their goals? First of all, you're waiting to be ready. That's what I would say you're waiting to be ready, right? There's a saying, reasons come first, answers come second. You know, you're never going to be ready. Like, so a great example of this is I speak to a business coach and I go, you got to hire somebody. And then what do you think they say? Oh, yes, I know. I'm not quite ready, but I'm going to when, right? And it's like, see, that time never comes. What you do is they hire somebody immediately, and then magically the work shows up, the prospects show up, the clients show up, the universe just, you know, again, the universe has a way of ordering things the way they need to be ordered, and suddenly you just manufactured something that needs to be reordered, and magically something good happens. I could give you 100 examples in my own life where I have done that. And we just got busier, and the software needed to be developed, and the prospects were coming, the clients were coming, the business was growing, the managers were in place, etc. So don't wait until you're ready. Don't let your client wait until they're ready. And believe me, they're gun shy, you know, because look, they have an addiction to instant gratification. You might have an addiction to instant gratification. You know, otherwise stated, treating a marathon as a sprint. I say that internally a lot, like, guys, it's a marathon. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon, right? So things are, you know, things are, I literally wrote this today to, I think in my daily email, actually. Things are easy to start, hard to finish. We did a 30-day challenge, and this was just the beginning message. Things are easy to start, hard to finish, right? You're going to be remembered for what? You'll be remembered for not what you start. I'll give you the red hot tip. You're going to be remembered for what you refuse to give up on, right? And maybe that's where the monopoly metaphor comes in, right? Like, again, you ever heard me talk about this? When you play Monopoly properly, halfway through, you feel like you're losing, right? Why? You got to buy. The next thing you know, all your cards are flip. All your cash is gone. But you got to stay in the game, right? You need a little bit of a luck, by the way. But guess what? If you buy everything, eventually it turns, and 2 a.m., guess what? You're the one standing and they're all to bed. The problem is halfway through, you feel like you're losing. And again, the other example is you double a penny every day for 31 days, you got 10 million bucks. And the problem is day 13, 14, 15, 16, it's just very unexciting, right? I'll tell you also, people are consumed with the little stuff that doesn't matter, you know, what they're going to wear, what other people think, you know, what they're going to eat, you know, managing, you know, like, is, you know, if you look, managing what you're going to eat is very important, but like, do it on Sunday for the entire week, right? And by the way, pay somebody. Gosh, guys, the amount of time that you light on fire, or people generally, your business owner lights on fire with what to eat, is just crazy. The wife back and forth, not to mention, you know, the ordering, the going to the grocery store, the coming home from the grocery store, the packing the groceries, getting them into the fridge. Like, just, I got to tell you, paying somebody to do meal prep for you and plan out your meals, that could save you hours per week, all of which could be delved into business, right? And make you could potentially make you a fortune, right? But what am I getting at? The little stuff, like deciding where you're going to eat, and it's back and forth. And by the way, maybe that's fun for you. And once in a while, yeah, like, it's fun with your husband, with your wife, to kind of go back and forth and kind of, oh, where are we going to go? And look, that's cool, right? But 7 days a week, hard no. But just the little stuff, worrying, look, way better than that, worrying about what people think. You got to be careful with that, right? Look, staying in your head, like, what do you, like, if you're in your head, right, and then you're quote unquote deciding if this is the right move, and I've been guilty of this, like guilty as charged, but that is just not an effective use of your time. I'll tell you what else is not, but like worrying about, what are you going to say? Worrying about people judging you. Okay, the one thing I can guarantee, remember, like, there's death and taxes. The other thing I can guarantee is that people are going to judge you, okay? And the more successful you come, the more they will judge you with 100% certainty, okay? So don't you worry about that. So if you want to be successful, you had better decide that people judging you is going to be okay, and you're not going to, look, you got to be happy about it? No, it's not what I'm saying. Is it kind of petty? Is it kind of lame? Look, let's agree that that's the case, right? Maybe it is, maybe it is. Who cares, right? That's, who cares? Remember, the elite stance is not to, like, the elite stance is not to not care and to water off a duck's back. The elite stance is not to notice. The elite stance is to know what New York, where New York is, where you are, and just keep marching forward. Don't even notice, right? And I can tell you that the Elon Musks and the Warren Buffetts and the Ray Dalios and the Charlie Mungers and the, you know, the greats of the greats of the greats, Jeff Bezos, whoever else you want to put in that category. And if you love them and you hate them, guys, these guys are billionaires, right? Like Grant Cardone would be a good example. Look, you know, my opinion of Grant Cardone is literally I tell you what, I know he don't care, okay? He knows where his New York is, and he's stomping right over the top of my opinion and my judgments. Not that I have them, but like, please, right? But let me tell you, the guy's a billionaire, and to think that you can't learn something from him, if I'm going to assume I'm speaking to an entrepreneur looking to move forward and guide others on moving forward, I think would be crazy. Do I think he gives some outlandish advice? Absolutely. Do I disagree with some of what he says? Absolutely. Do I agree with everything Gary Vaynerchuk says? No, absolutely not. Absolutely. But I think Gary Vaynerchuk, am I a bigger Gary Vaynerchuk fan than Grant Cardone? And first of all, doesn't matter. Who cares? Neither of them specifically. But like I would be more in the Gary camp than the Grant camp. But who cares? Right? And by the way, I got to tell you, I'll go to my Facebook feed and they'll be saying something, and I will tell you that I will just, unless there's something that grabs me, scoot over the top of it and just not even notice. That's not the best example of what I'm trying to describe earlier about not noticing. What I really want to do is get inside your head. And if you have New York defined properly, you just run right over the top of those judgments like it's a nothing burger. Maybe look, social media. Look, spending time consuming social media. See, the one thing that I could say about myself, like I'm reading positive stuff. I'm clicking on stuff about growth, and like, so my algorithm is geared, so I think that I have a fairly positive social media experience. And if I got, oh my gosh, I have a friend who's just out in left field that I just discovered recently, right? Went to his post, I read a couple of them. I had to unfriend the guy immediately, right? Like I'm just like, I'm not going to have this stuff in my life. Like, I don't want to be scrolling Facebook and then see something weird about him and his family and his wife and his whatever. That's just not, in my opinion, right? Again, my opinion, I don't think that's the right place to air that kind of stuff, right? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, don't care. That's not where I'm going to do it. But that's just not what I want my social media experience to be, is what I'm saying, right? So I'm going to challenge on your social media experience. And I think that you might find, look, I know that the neighbor's new dog's awesome and stuff, and the videos are great, but I don't know, if you want to build a kick butt business, I don't know, if I went to Jeff Bezos and I went to Zuckerberg and I went to Michael Dell and I went to, the business greats by financial numbers and return on investment, what would they say? And I think I'd have a hard time saying that social media would be anything that would resemble a good use of time. I think, look, change, like everybody wants to change the world, but nobody wants to change toilet paper, right? Probably heard that one. And like, feeling selfish because you want to move the needle is wrong. Okay. And again, that comes back to judgment. Again, I'm going to tell you, you're going to be successful. You're going to become more successful. The people who love you the most are going to try to hold you back. So, with 80%, if not 95% certainty. So don't feel selfish for wanting change, right? Look, Russia, I think, look, this is a hard one, okay? So speed kills. You got to be careful, right? Like, again, if you're riding a little kid's bicycle, you're probably not going to be able to get really hurt. If you get in an F1 car, semi-unrealistic, right? I don't know, these are the great best two examples to give you, but no doubt, look, do you think you could die in an F1? And the answer is hard yes, right? Like, as soon as you hit that gas pedal, it might just take you straight off a cliff. Do you think you're going to go off a cliff on your daughter's bicycle that's just, tiny and pink and like laces hanging off the handlebars? Probably not. Speed kills, right? But I think that then sometimes it can go the other way where, you're worrying that you're going to rush things, right? And I'm going to say that, again, what you got to do is take a step back before, be conscientious about it. But I'm going to say that in the dynamic that for general business and the people that we're speaking to, business owners and yourself with business coaching, I think rushing thing is going to be better than holding back. Right? And I will tell you, and why do you feel like rushing? Because you feel unworthy and undeserved of success. And I don't know if that's your parents' fault. I don't know if that's something in your childhood. I don't know if, and maybe that's not the case for you, which would be awesome and high five. But I can tell you that 80% of the population plus do not feel worthy or deserved of success. And if that's you, then all of the best advice in the world and the best strategies and the best tactics and the best marketing assets and the best business and the best industry and the best trend and the anti-aging, it's not going to help you if you don't feel deserving of success. Why do people go on a diet, lose weight, and then gain it all back plus 10 pounds? Well, it's psychology 101. It's a conversation you're having inside your head, right? And let me tell you also, you're not surrounding. Okay, so if I'm describing somebody you know, a client of yours, maybe yourself, you got to surround yourself with people that can help you. Okay, let me just put this in capitals, okay, from personal experience. You surround yourself with loyal people who care about you and who can help you, right? Like a good example, early on my business coaching career, I had a client and he was a graphic designer and he used to do all the Hallmark, Hallmark cards. I mean, he was a bit of a big deal, right? He was doing some good stuff, right? So he's a graphic designer and he's doing graphic design for Hallmark, like Hallmark cards, bit of a home run, right? Well, I told you got to hire somebody to do. Remember, I think I went on holidays. I don't know. I end up back in his office in 2 weeks, and he said, "Good news, man. I took your advice and I hired somebody finally." And I'm like, "Okay, cool. Who is it?" And they're like, or what are they going to do? Whatever. And it turned out, right? Take a long story and make it very short. He hired a graphic designer. Okay, what was he? A graphic designer. What did he hire? A graphic designer. Right? People like themselves. People like people who are like themselves, right? So he hired a facsimile of himself, right? And I'm like, dude, like if you just go like a coaching business, you got 3 baskets. You got lead generation, you got conversion, and you got fulfillment. So if you were going to hire 3 people, first of all, which one are you good at? Are you good at lead gen? Okay, then we should think about getting a hot salesperson. And then think about getting a really good fulfillment, a really good coach, right? You need a really good coach. You're good at the lead gen. Don't hire another lead generator, right? You do that and then fill the other baskets. That's what I mean when surround yourself with people who can help you, right? So what are the skills? If you want to build a big company, you need to have skilled people who are loyal, who stay. That's what you need. You need people who stick around. At our company, we've had Danny. She's been my right arm. She's been with me 13 years. Chris, he's worked for us for 11 years. My business partner, Adrian, we've been business partners for 14 years. Craig worked for me for 16 years. You know what I mean? So you need people who stick around. And the list goes on, and we've had clients for well over a decade, right? Again, you're not going to do that. You need loyal, skilled people who stick around. That's how you build a successful company. So there you go. You know what? That's my, that is, I think, my time for today. Sans Road Dog. Road Dog, what does he do? He ends it with one thing. I'm gonna pretend like Road Dog just asked, give me the one thing. You know what? I'm gonna go back to your primary question. I don't know that there's anything more powerful for you, whether you want. And remember, if you're clearer, if you've got more clarity, if you've got more gratitude, if you've got more calm and inner peace about you, do you think that your chances of success are greater, or do you think that they diminish? And your instincts are correct; they would be greater, right? So I'm going to say that of everything we talk about here today, there's a debate to say, and just at the end of the day, why do you want to be successful? Why do you want to have a big company? Well, I guess you want freedom, right? Like you want peace of mind. You want to feel successful within yourself, right? So that's the ultimate thing. It's not the size of the company and the revenues and the amount of staff and all that. It's feeling successful. And I don't know that there's a better thing to do than what Tony Robbins takes 5 days that all culminates in one question. And that is your primary question that he wants you to ask yourself over and over and over again. And mine, how do I more enjoy the magic of right now? I would challenge you to reverse engineer your existing question, and don't beat yourself up if it's negative, and it probably is, and that's okay. But replace it with a positive one. And then once you do, I want to challenge you to practice. until it becomes something that you're asking yourself repeatedly. I think there's huge power in that. So that is what I'm going to do for the last one. So there you go, folks. That's it for Business Coaching Secrets. Sans Road Dog. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks so much, folks. Adios.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0 to train business coaches how to find any small business owner more than $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. This becomes a business coach's superpower. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at focused.com.